Hey guys, welcome back to Cards with Katz, episode 6. I'm really excited to bring Dr. Kaitlyn McSurdy onto the podcast. If I had like the audio people, this would be where the like do 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 meow 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 would like the horns would come in. And I'm sorry for anyone who actually listens to this had to hear my rendition of it. Pepperoni might also make a appearance. But getting back to you, I'm just really thrilled that we finally get to sit down and talk, because I've been a big fan of you, D1 athlete, and I know that you don't put it out to shame people, but like it puts a fire on my backside to be like, get back to the gym, Cats. Like you don't have an excuse. And you're Pepper, stop. You're at Temple, just started second year of residency. How are things going?
Things are going better now that I'm in the outpatient setting. The first week of second year was very overwhelming. There is a lot to do that the people on your team don't necessarily know how to do.
Yeah.
And they're
asking you like, hey, how do you do this stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And last year I'm like 2 weeks ago, I was like, that was me asking those questions. And now I'm expected to answer them. So it's been a lot to manage, a lot to learn, a lot to do. It's just been super overwhelming, but it was actually way more fun, I think, than intern year in general. So I think I like the role of being a second year a little better than being.
I think you're gonna really have to try really hard to find anyone who will not be able to find something that's better than intern year. It is like, I think about pledging for a fraternity in college, but like that was the residency intern year is way worse. But it reminds me of like a thing where you're excited to do it and you don't really know what intern year is like until you're in it. And then I think we all have those thoughts of like, I regret, that meme of like, I made a terrible mistake, just because it can be so much work. I remember my first day of as like a second year resident, I had like 2 interns, a sub-I fourth year, 2 brand new third year med students, like a pharmacy resident, and then also a psych intern. And they're all like, what do we do? And I was just like, let me go find a more senior, like a more doctorly doctor. But that's awesome that I think it's normal that you're definitely feeling that. Do you feel like you know more than you thought you did?
Definitely. I think, the last few weeks, like leading up to July 1st, for us, June 20th, I guess, I was very hesitant about, did I learn enough as an intern? Am I able to answer the same questions that I'm now asking? But it's very interesting to look at where you were a year ago. You look at that person right in the face, and it's very interesting to see how much you actually grow. I feel like most people never get to experience that because you're always comparing yourself with yourself. And so you never actually see a direct comparison, but looking at first day of second year and then looking at a brand new intern, you're just like, wow, that's where I was a year ago. Like, holy crap, I actually learned a lot, not a little, a lot.
Yeah.
And it's weird because as an intern, you don't realize you're learning. I think most of the time I felt like a glorified secretary at best.
And I was a terrible glorified secretary. I was not always a good intern, as my old senior residents, I'm sure if they ever listen, would attest to. Like, it's not always like an easy thing. And boy, man, it is just a tough time period. But I feel like that really resonates with me. And like what probably a lot of interns want to hear and want to know is like, I'm working a lot, but like, is anything getting in there? But I think it's always reassuring to hear people who have succeeded at least enough to make it through intern year, which is a huge accomplishment in and of itself. And then to like realize that you go through that process of like looking back and being like, maybe I did learn some stuff. So speaking of intern year, I think it's July 7th. So like maybe the interns are done with orientation. Maybe they've been on. I remember my first rotation was like a week of inpatient, then a week of outpatient, and then CCU. And then when I get to the CCU, they're like, oh, you've been doing this for like 3 weeks. And I'm like, I don't, can you just pretend like it's my first day again? So do you, and then I also had to go to a different hospital. So like 3 months into intern year, I have like another first day. So I feel like those first first day is tough. First week is tough. First month, then the first quarter is really tough. So Do you have any, looking back at your intern year, do you have any things that you feel like either you wish you did differently, things that you really were like, everyone should do this type of thing, or any general advice to a brand new intern who's trying to, not just survive, but thrive in residency?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a very like similar situation as you intern year, even though I did not have to go to another hospital. I feel like that adds a whole entire extra level of stress. But I think just the challenge of going through intern year is you finally, like once you're on floors for so many weeks, you start to get a little bit more comfortable and feel like you know what you're doing. And then you go to the ICU or you go to one of these like tougher rotations. And even in the outpatient setting, the outpatient setting is a completely different world when we're used to spending all of the time in the hospital. And so I feel like you're just constantly being pushed to you're constantly being pushed outside of your comfort zone. And so I think the biggest thing that I learned intern year is that the best tip that you can be given is to seek feedback, ask people for feedback, and just be observant as to what your seniors are doing and ask them if they can observe or just like take note of how you're, structuring your day, how you're going through your tasks, what you're prioritizing. And that is going to help you kind of ride the learning curve a little bit better because you actually have some feedback to go off of. You have space to figure out, oh, hey, this is how I can be more efficient. Someone who is efficient literally just told me that this is what I can do to improve. And I think that that'll be helpful because every rotation is going to be a little bit of a learning curve. Even a lot of people think that outpatient medicine is like their chill rotation, but you don't spend a lot of time there. So actually this can be one of the more difficult things, I think, throughout like an inpatient heavy subspecialty like internal medicine. So I think just seeking feedback from your seniors, particularly about your efficiency and just the general structure of your day, is something that could be very beneficial for any intern who's just starting out.
Sorry, I'm not rolling my eyes. My cat is so annoying. Every time I sit on the couch, it like goes up here and just where is she? Like all the way up here and just meows at me. I don't know what I do wrong, but if I apologize for the meowing, it's not me, despite my name. But I think everything you said is so valid that, in medicine, the reason why it's residency's 3 years is that you have to learn a lot. And, I think that every single time I approach a rotation, I like on the first day when I'm hopefully well rested, I try to approach it, with like a new game plan of like, how am I going to improve? How am I going to do better last time? But you kind of want to have that immediacy of the feedback of like, shoot, what did I, if I messed up something like an hour ago, it's hard, but it's one of those challenges as like a senior resident to take someone aside and tell them precisely like, hey, you could, and figuring out how to deliver that and receive that feedback as an intern or any stage of your training is so valuable. And I think you hit the nail on the head that from my experience as well, like you not only have to seek it out, but you kind of have to be an advocate for yourself and kind of push sometimes, I've worked with great attendings and fellows and residents, and people often have great intentions. And sometimes like the day just gets busy and they forget to be like, hey, I'm talking about that. I think about that feedback. I think we've all had those amazing senior residents and you're just like in awe of how good of not just a doctor they are, but like a leader and how they take the time to do all that stuff. And some attendings, are similarly on that bell curve of like, are going to get out of the hospital as soon as possible. And the ones that are going to give you mounds of feedback. And you're just like, come on. All right. This is enough feedback. But, have you, I know you've only been a senior resident for like a week or like 3 weeks now. Have you had that experience as a senior resident having to like give that feedback yet?
Yeah, so I actually did. I mean, we're encouraged to give feedback at the end of any time either we're going off service or we have someone who is going off service, just to give feedback to them. So I have had that experience, and that's kind of how I chose to approach it. I tried to approach it in the sense that, this is very early on in the year. There is a ton of room for improvement. And I think that the thing I can do to be the most helpful right now is not judge how much medicine they know, how many years they may have taken off before starting residency versus maybe they studied during, their time off, but to just be like open-minded towards that, and more so just give them feedback on how to be efficient, because a lot of the learning curve of intern year has nothing to do with your foundation of knowledge. It has all to do with hospital processes and healthcare system, and just like learning all this stuff that you can't learn unless you're thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
So that's the approach I took to giving them feedback, was just showing them how they can be more efficient, and just I wrote some things down like in my phone as the week went along, and just kind of told them like, hey, this is what you can be doing to, you know, structure your day a little better, or this is what you can be doing to get to conference on time, etc. So I think that they were pretty grateful for that.
Yeah, sounds like everything that I would want in a senior resident. So keep doing what you're doing. And it just amazes me that we still use like fax machines in the hospital, like that's a thing. And I think you keep bringing more and more nuggets of knowledge, because like I remember working my first week of residency and just being like, what the hell? That was exhausting, because I'd never worked an 80-hour week. And like, we joke that, oh, it's on average 80 hours. But like in the beginning, you know, I think as you get better at being efficient, the work fills the time. So if you show up to work an hour early, you're not going to maybe do more. You're just going to do it over that extra hour. But I think in the beginning of residency, I remember showing up at like 5:30, because I was like, it just takes me forever to do all of the, you know, see all the patients, write the notes, look up all the stuff. Do you have a good process that you try? I mean, I know that most people use like check boxes, but then my whole page, like to this day, that's one of my like weaknesses as a person, is like the number of times I've lost my keys on the way out of the door, and then I'm late for something, or while I'm in the hospital, I you know, forget to do like a menial task, and I write everything down, but then it gets lost in the fray. So do you have any advice for, you know, residents or, you know, fellows who might, you know, just to get a little distracted on their day-to-day life, or, you know, how to approach a day as an intern?
Yeah, I think that's actually like a pretty good question. I have to think about that, because I very much use the checkbox technique. I always I'll highlight whichever patients I'm seeing, and then I will, on the left-hand column, I always write handoff and note, because I know there are two things I have to do for every single patient every day. If they wind up getting discharged, then I just cross off the entire thing and it doesn't matter. And then anytime either on grounds, that an attending or a senior resident mentions a task, I'll write it down. And then if I think of something maybe I want to do, I'll also write it down as a task. Early on in intern year, I had no idea what I was doing, so I usually asked if I could do said idea. But towards the end, you kind of know what you should have approved by an attending and what you don't really need to tell anybody. So I think that that's what worked for me. In terms of not misplacing the paper,
Oh man,
invest in some figs, because figs have a lot of pockets. And
number of times I've lost my paper, I'm just like, gosh darn it, not the left side pocket, left lower side pocket, back left side pocket.
I don't know, that's all I got.
That sounds like a great cutting point where we're going to take a quick break. On the next episode, we'll get back to talking about social media and medicine and how you can start establishing yourself as a professional. Don't go anywhere.